Ulingana, stories from Eastern Province, Zambia. Episode 2. So you want to be a volunteer. In episode 1, I posed the question, why did I come here to Eastern Province, Zambia? Destiny? Maybe. I've been on the planet long enough to realize that everything about life is a mystery. Maybe the simplest, most overlooked fact of life. Maybe destiny is part of that mystery. There is something. I discovered that I have a heart. Well, it's not that much of a discovery. I've always been touched by other people's suffering, but I think most of us have. Although maybe it's a shame it doesn't seem to apply to a lot of the people who run the planet. So when I stopped working full-time, the feeling got strong. I felt the need to do something about that feeling before I got too old. Everyone and their dog was busy bombing or terrorizing the people of Syria at that time. So I determined to go and work in a refugee camp. I was very soon dissuaded from that by the professionals who know the scenario. What they said made sense. If you go there, not knowing what you're doing, you will become part of the problem, and we will have to divert valuable resources to get you out of whatever mess you've got yourself into. Okay, I got that. So I wandered through the internet and emailed places, and the one who answered was a lodge NGO with a social program in Eastern Province, Zambia. It was all too easy, and in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail, there I was. Actually, it's a big journey, one not for the faint-hearted, but that will be the subject of another podcast in this series. The epic journey of Tony back to the UK, 10,000 kilometres in times of COVID. That was an adventure. Usually it's just a long trip. That particular time it would probably have been simpler to have walked to the border and then across Tanzania, then sailed single-handed from Dar es Salaam back to the UK in a dinghy. But I had to do it the hard way on aeroplanes. It's a good story. Watch this space. Anyway, I arrive in Zambia. Heading out from Kenneth Kaunda Airport, Lusaka. Within a few kilometres, you're already onto the Great East Road. It's one of Zambia's main arteries radiating out from the heart. There's the T1 going to Livingstone and the famous Victoria Falls. T2 heads south to the Zimbabwe border and Harare beyond. Also, T2 goes north from Lusaka up to Kapirimposhi, then across through Central and Muchinga provinces, skirting the vast DRC incursion, delightfully called the Pedicle, Little Foot. You can see it on the map. To the border with Tanzania, closely shadowed by the railway that the Chinese built. A 2-day trip from Kapirimposhi to Dar es Salaam. I haven't done that trip, but some friends of mine did it a few years back. It goes through some stunning country apparently, gorges, tunnels, bush with wildlife. But let's get back to our route, the T4, Lusaka to Lilongwe Road. Lilongwe is the capital of Malawi, so strictly speaking, the road finishes on the border just past Chipata. But you tend to think of it as a Zambia-Malawi highway. In the colonial days when Britain was the colonizer, or invader, however you might say it, Zambia was called Northern Rhodesia, and Malawi was Nyasaland. Chipata, that last town on the eastern border, was Fort Jameson, a nod to the us against them mentality of the invaders, perhaps. So I got to the lodge, and it was very cool. Everything was new to me, delightfully so. I'd only ever been to North Africa before. This was my first taste of sub-Saharan Africa. We were getting close to Christmas. Decorations were going up in the lodge. It's funny to see a hanging decoration of Santa in his sleigh with snow all about, in 30-degree blazing sunshine, and any excuse for a party. My first taste of traditional songs from the choir. So I was put to work by the lodge director as a volunteer, but within a week I had lost any enthusiasm for the work I was asked to do. I'm not going to say any more about this particular lodge and its program. It did, after all, give me my foothold here. But now I was feeling hopeless, directionless, and I'd booked for 3 months. What to do? Circumstances dictated events. I had a blazing row with the director, who had just insulted me in full view of all the Zambian staff. She is a very angry person. Me, not really that much, but that day my anger was full on. I got the apology I wanted in front of everyone, but the best thing was that over the next few days, suddenly I had new friends, as one by one the staff started coming up to me. Tony, we know that most of the white volunteers here report back to the director. That's why we don't say anything that we really think. But it seems that you are different. And people started trusting me a bit more, and as importantly, educating me. I actually needed their gentle kindness anyway to keep me from spinning off. It was a strange time for me. When I travelled in Europe, I was reserved, quiet, dressed conservatively to blend in and not feel out of place in galleries or restaurants. The English gentleman abroad. But here in Africa, I was culture shocked, though I didn't realise it at the time. I was like the stereotype cartoon American tourist. Everything made me laugh in delight. I wanted to capture everything I saw and experienced on the video camera that a friend had lent me for the trip and was my new toy. From the other side of the lens, I was probably a complete pain in the arse. But fortunately, there were people there who saw something in me and helped me to settle down and slow into the African pace of life. But at the same time, I had to really tighten up my focus. Why did I come here? Did I come to help this poor community? Perhaps you've heard of Shining White Knight syndrome. If not, I think it's self-explanatory. It's scary and certainly inflicted some of the visitors that I met at the lodge. But it's not me, perish the thought. I think pretty much everyone does what they do because it gives them satisfaction in some way. So if you get your kicks helping others, you may kid yourself that you're being selfless. But actually, you're being selfish, doing what you want to do. Isn't that true? There is a form of giving that occasionally you see in people who I can only look to in admiration. Khalil Gibran describes it in his book, The Prophet. There are those who give and know not pain in giving, nor do they seek joy, nor give with mindfulness of virtue. They give as in yonder valley the myrtle breathes its fragrance into space. Beautiful poetry for a beautiful aspiration, but I guess it requires recognition of the common thread of life, the essence of existence that ties all living things. Not carrying that in your head as a theory, but in your heart as a reality that you perceive. From such a standpoint, it would be natural to share with others. And the other really significant thing, is it just plain patronising to offer your services to those less well off? White knight syndrome is certainly unpleasantly patronising. And why do you imagine that you have something to offer? Well, my take on this: look realistically at your skill set. Compare it with the skills of people around you. Look to see if there is a need for a particular skill. Then make yourself available, whatever that means in the context. For me, it ties back to first seeing whether you can fit into the community and are willing to learn from people about culture and customs. Then it will happen naturally for you. Don't be pushy. Don't dive in like a maniac and do what you've decided people need. Don't go and build a library out in the bush for people who can't read. I'm told that has happened in the past, but that's anecdotal. It illustrates the point, though. So, if you can read the culture a bit better, and that only comes with sensitivity and time spent with people, then they can guide us how to use skills that we might have, but they haven't had the chance to learn. Let me give you an example. A friend of mine, who is one of the yoga teachers in the group we established by popular request, said recently, initiative is not taught here. I have seen that schooling can be repetitive, stuff written up on the blackboard for pupils to copy. So you are just fed information with no training in how to make sense of it. But that really depends on the teacher, of course. So, working together, we learned how I could best teach principles of muscular movement so that they could gradually start to find questions themselves. Then the information, the knowledge that I had, became more relevant. By the way, I'll do a podcast on Yoga Zambia in this series. I never went with the intention of introducing yoga to Zambia. It's my personal thing. What happened was that I was often able to do my early morning physical yoga practice outside under the tree of the blue lizard. There was a little patio area there. My room wasn't big enough anyway. People would see me, then sometimes sitting in meditation afterwards. Tony, are you a Muslim? I would explain that, no, this is just a way of staying healthy. And when you see me sitting quietly, it's relaxing my mind and having some peace and stillness before my day starts. It's called yoga. Soon people were asking to join me, and Yoga Zambia was born. Unlike some people I've worked with in the yoga field in UK, Yoga Zambia was a reflection of the culture, full of laughter. But as I said, I'll do a podcast episode on Yoga Zambia soon. On that first visit to Eastern Province, I was told by people of my culture and colour, you will be treated very kindly by the Zambian people, but don't be fooled into thinking you will ever understand them. Telling me that was like a red rag to a bull. Some people in my own culture are like aliens to me, no common ground at all. And people from other cultures that I've met, maybe you just connect. Then later you can negotiate your way through cultural differences from a standpoint of friendship. And I think that's the same in any culture. Years later, I've proved that here. I have Zambian friends now who are very dear to me. We laugh at the same things. We understand each other. We read each other's mood. But the differences between me and my friends here, though not big, delight me and make me laugh. Just little things like I say to a friend in the UK, didn't you like that movie? And they would say, no, meaning they didn't like it. Whereas my Zambian friend would reply, yes, meaning, yes, that statement is correct. I didn't like that movie. It can be very confusing until you learn to phrase your questions correctly. Back in the lodge, life became very easy. Nothing to do except chill and enjoy developing friendships. Like with Isaac Kazembe, church elder when I met him, but one time reprobate and bane of the remaining English after the Republic was declared. He will get an entire episode of these podcasts to himself to reflect his great heart. And like with Isaiah Zulu, one of the first people to give me a transparent kindness. We have the knack of making each other crack up laughing at the smallest thing. Later, he would join me for morning yoga in his signature floppy hat. This is what I was here for. A dawning recognition. Oh, these are my kind of people. Alice ran the lodge side of things, the accommodation, the restaurant, the kitchen. Anyway, one day she brought a daughter into work, 6 years old coming on 7. Alice told me that Katie had been deaf since birth. In the next podcast in this series, I will give the story of Katie. She was actually the main reason initially why I returned to Zambia year after year, because I took on the job of raising enough money for her schooling in a specialist school for deaf children. a beautiful story of which I feel honoured to be a part, and I hope you will enjoy. I had been told that Ketty had no prospects unless a sponsor for her could be found. In telling me that, her mother Alice looked at me and said, "You have told us that you have not much money, so I am not asking you." But I thought for all of 15 seconds before replying, "That's true, but I can fundraise back in the UK. We will get that money. Do you accept me as a sponsor?" And her consent meant that a beautiful story was born. I found out later that Alice was taking a big chance, a big risk. If the director had found out, she would have sacked Alice on the spot. Why? No one was allowed to help her subjects except the Queen herself, as I started to call the director, much to the amusement of my new Zambian friends. But now I had a purpose for being at that lodge. Now I could see my way forward. This was the start of a beautiful story, and I will tell some of that story in the next episode.